This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with Bruce Hutchin, episode number 078.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Zachary Overman of New Generation Outdoors is a Kansas rancher with a passion for whitetails, but even more so growing NGO to a national level. Our mission at NGO is to encourage, educate, involve, and inspire our new generations to get involved in the American outdoor heritage of hunting. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. And this morning we have a really special guest, Zachary Overman. He goes by Zach from Southeast Kansas, runs a cow-calf operation, plus he's very involved with New Generation Outdoors. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Bruce.
Say, Zach, in talking with you, you've got a nickname called Melrose Marauder. Can you share with the listeners what that's all about?
Well, it stems back to the 60s and 70s back here in my hometown. The families around here, you know, when it's harvest time's over, and because we're a farming community, of course, and they would all get together and play baseball. So there were several teams around the area from all the towns, and they were known as the Marauders. That was their baseball teams for the local communities. And so naturally we had the Melrose Marauders. But it even goes further than that. As time went on, you know, it just became the nickname for all the guys that grew up in my community, and the Melrose Marauder stuck, and now it's a pride thing for me. You know, I'm proud of that tradition, that heritage, you know, passing down those stories where all of our uncles and cousins got together and played baseball together, you know, on a homemade field out in the middle of a wheat field.
Well, traditions are important, and traditions are really important in the world of whitetail, and that's one reason why Whitetail Rendezvous exists. Let's start right off and talk about the traditions of whitetail deer that are in your life.
Right. Well, I grew up hunting. My father used to take me out before I could even walk, and I can remember at 5 and 6 years old him setting me in a brush pile near his tree stand, you know, and him sitting up there with his bow. And, you know, I don't actually remember him ever killing anything because I was young, you know, and probably playing with stuff, messing around in the brush pile. But those memories stick with you through time, and those are the ones that hold most prominent. My dad, he was an avid hunter, and he always took me along. He coon hunted around the country and with Walker coonhounds, and I'm proud of those memories and things that I've shared. I grew up here in this local community, you know, farming community, and my ag teacher in high school, he ran a Buckmasters club through his class in ag, and he was also into 3D archery, and he really is the one that got me into whitetail hunting the most. And I'm proud to say he's actually writes for the Alaska Journal, Outdoor Journal now, and he lives in Alaska, and so, you know, those memories are what sticks with you through time.
Yes, they do. Let's talk about some of the best advice you got when you started whitetail hunting, and who gave you the advice?
Well, my ag teacher, he would be the one that gave me the advice, but you know, you got to stay calm. You got to keep your nerves about you. Then whitetail, they get my adrenaline pumped up. I don't know about anybody else, but they get my adrenaline pumped up, and then I forget my basics. So he's the one that he told me to just keep calm, stay calm, and breathe and focus on not on the whitetail, but on making the clean shot and getting it done professionally.
Now, what was your ag teacher's name? Is he still alive and teaching?
Well, he's not teaching anymore, but his name is Paul Atkins.
Well, Mr. Atkins, thank you so much for, you know, passing on something that is lasting way longer than you might have thought. So, sir, we appreciate it. Let's talk about your first harvest.
Well, not much to say, really. Like I said, I get nervous, so of course my heart gets pumping. I had it was a small 8-point little basket rack is what we call them around here, and he come up underneath my stand about 15 yards, and I drew back my bow on him. I was shooting a Hoyt at that time, and I drew back on him, and I didn't make a good clean kill, unfortunately. He was hit in the, I guess it'd be the liver area, and he ran quite a ways, so, kind of guts, and he ended up near a creek that we call 4 Mile Creek here in the area. And anyway, after lots of searching, following lots of blood, I finally got to him. It was about an hour later, and it was one of the proudest moments of my life. It's what got me stuck on whitetail hunting for sure, but I focus on more ethical kills from now, that's for sure.
Sometimes, no matter how hard we practice, it just doesn't go right. Hits a branch, the deer will move. It just takes a step, and stuff happens. But the biggest thing is what we do after the shot, and you did everything right. And I bet you were excited. How old were you then?
I was 14 years old.
14 years old. Wow, what a thrill. Now, do you have kids that hunt today?
No, I actually do not have kids of my own. Unfortunately, I went through a couple of bad marriages, so fortunately in that outcome, I didn't have kids.
All right. Well, let's open up on New Generation Outdoors. Tell us how you get involved in that, because from my reading and research, it's a opportunity for men, for women to get involved and bring in kids into the outdoors. And from where this man sits, our tradition of hunting is on the fire, and the best way that I know of to bring it to the forefront and continue our traditions is through the youth of our country. So, Zach, let's talk about that. Let's talk about New Generation Outdoors.
Absolutely. I'd love to, Bruce. New Generation Outdoors, that's exactly what we're about. It's about the heritage, traditions of everything outdoors, not just hunting. It's fishing, it's farming, it's anything that has to do with outdoors. We want to get involved with activities like 4-H, FFA, anything that we can get involved in. That is what we're trying to, that is youth-oriented, that gets kids outdoors. This day of electronics keeps the kids indoors too much, and I think they need to get out and enjoy stuff, and we need to pass on the traditions and things like my ag teacher and my father did to me, and that's what we're all about at NGO.
Now, how did you first hear about NGO?
I actually found out through Instagram about NGO. They were just putting out a normal post. They're a new organization. They were looking for members, so I liked their mission statement, which is youth-oriented. We want to pass on the tradition. So I decided to contact them and ask them, what they were doing and how I could get involved, and that's the start of it. I became the state rep for Kansas, and then now the regional director for this area.
Who started New Generation Outdoors?
Our founder's name is Russ Perdue.
And where's he from, and why is he involved in this?
He lives in Naples, Florida now. He's from Indiana. He started this there in his local area with his kids and then his, family and friends in the area, and the mission has grown out from there.
Now, when he started, what was his overall aim, to take this national? I mean, a lot of people have ideas, but he seems to have grabbed the bull by the horns, as they say, and move this thing forward. So can you talk a little bit about his desire and the vision of the company?
Well, we want, of course we want it to grow. Right now we're small, and it starts with our local communities and our directors like myself, our representatives. If we get involved in our own communities and get the kids just like he did in his home community of Indiana with his family and friends, his friends as kids. I don't have kids of my own, but I can get involved by my friends as kids and things like that. And that's what his vision is for this, is to start small in our local communities, and we want to grow up from there. You have to start somewhere, and it takes somebody stepping up to pass those traditions on and to get other people fired up about that mission as well. And he just did that.
I see that you have 21 representatives throughout the country right now. And what type of person do you look for as a representative for NGO?
Definitely needs to be somebody that's heavily involved in some sort of outdoor activity, some sort of outdoor function, such as farming and the cattle operation like myself, and that I'm also trying to get more involved in the hunting industry. I've worked at hunting lodges and things around the area. We've done youth clay pigeon shoots, and those are the things we want to get involved in. And that's what we look for in a state representative, is somebody who's involved in those things already that can help pass on the word about NGO and get more people. It takes members, and that's what we need. We need people to join NGO. And like I said, it's from all facets of outdoor activities. You can be a kayak fisherman or just an old farmhand like myself.
Now, when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, Zach, I'm interested in this program," do you have a manual you send them? Are you using YouTube videos, or how are you informing people that, hey, this is a great operation to get involved in?
Right. Well, we have, protocol. We have contract that, you sign up. It's free memberships right now to the public, so that's a bonus. But basically all you have to do is get a hold of us, shoot us an email. If you get on Facebook, it's we're New Generation Outdoors. If you get on Twitter, it's at NGO _2014, and we have Instagram, and we have everything. Just look up NGO, New Generation Outdoors, get on there. We have an email. It's newgenerationoutdoors@gmail.com. And we have a list of, what we're looking for, things that would be required out of you as a member, things that you would get as benefits. And I can't really go over a lot of that in detail until people actually start trying to sign up.
All right. So that's the membership. Now, how about your state reps or regional reps? What type of people are you looking for in those capacities?
Leaders. We need people that are willing to get out there and spread the word, people that are going to events and are already around youth that can tell them about our mission, and we want to get more involved and eventually start sponsoring and making our own events and have our own club going. That's what the goal is. We want members that we can grow from and build a club of our own so that more people are passing on the traditions. But the state reps are definitely leaders. We need leaders that will be willing to step up and take that initiative.
Thank you for that background. Let's get back to whitetail hunting. We talked about your first harvest. In the last couple of years, what are some of your aha moments? Things where you're trying to sort out about whitetail hunting, then all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. Can you share a couple of those with us?
Yeah. I never used to be a believer in cover scent. I didn't believe that the whitetail really were that spooked by our human scent, because we're surrounded. Our communities aren't that far apart. We don't have 75 miles in between a community. It's more like 5 to 10 miles between a community. So the deer see a lot more people. So I was actually, my aha moment one time was walking through the woods, and I spooked a deer, and she was close. It was a doe. It was not one I wanted to harvest, luckily, but I didn't have a cover scent on, and the aha hit me in the face when the only reason I could have spooked her, and I did, was because she had picked up my scent. And ever since then, I've been a believer in cover scents, and I can get close to them now and not have that problem.
Now, which ones do you like?
I like the dead downwind.
Now, do you use the carbon clothes, the scent blockers, scent locks, and Amaral? I mean, there's hundreds of them out there. Do you use those types of scent control?
Yes, I do. I do. I have a scent blocker suit.
Now, how do you think that helps you be a better hunter?
I think it filters my own odor in a way through, like you said, the carbon filtration or whatever. I'm not exactly sure on the technology of all that. Like I said, I'm just kind of a simple farm guy, but I know that if I don't use it, it seems to affect the way the deer respond to me in the woods. They can see me and not smell me, and I don't get the same spook out of them that I do if I'm not using those products, and I can obviously tell they smelled me, and then that's what caused them to spook.
Now, what do you wear on your feet? What type of boots do you wear?
I actually just wear a normal Gore-Tex lined hunting boot, just a regular hunting boot.
So have you tried rubber boots?
I have, and my feet get hot, and I have yet to find a pair of rubber boots that I can really sit comfortably in. I can't wear insulated boots of any kind. My feet just get way too hot for it.
Even when it's cold out?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They get so hot, then they sweat, and then they're freezing.
Oh, well, that's not a bad problem to have if your feet are heat generators. I'd like to have feet like that, I think.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit about the one thing from last season that you tried a new technique or discovered a new technique or understood how better to use your gear that you're going to take forward to this year.
Well, a technique. I'm not really sure, Bruce, on that one. I'm not really sure on that. A technique. I'm not really sure on what I would change for next year. I'm not sure about technique, but I was picky last year. I decided to trophy hunt, and that's a mistake that I regret. I'm going to definitely go into next year not trying to, get the biggest one out there in the woods. I'm a management-minded person, and I don't just shoot at the basket racks anymore like I did when I was 14. But I'm not going to wait till the last minute to score that big guy.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What changed your mind?
Well, I passed up on 2 for sure shooter bucks, mature. They were 4.5, 5 years old. Could have went a little bit longer maybe, but I knew there was a bigger buck in the woods. I had seen him, just hadn't got close enough to him to shoot him, and I waited till the last minute and passed up on those 2 bucks, those 2 different opportunities that I could have harvested one, and I ended up not killing a buck this year because of it.
Now, what time of the season did you see the 2 shooter bucks?
The first one was early in the season, it was pre-rut, and then the second one was right about the end of rut this year in November.
So during the hot time of the rut, no, in southeast Kansas, when does that what are those typical dates of, the bucks are really running?
Well, it's changed through the years, actually, which is kind of a funny thing, but we're starting to get earlier in the year. So late October, we're starting to see pre-rut action for sure, and the 1st of November, they're rutting hardcore.
Now, your weather is mild, or do you get some, cold nights? Or let's talk about the temperature and the moon as it affects what you see of rut activity.
All right. Our temperature, our weather, it's fairly mild that time of year. We actually kind of have spring-like falls there. It's probably 50 degrees on average, 45 maybe at the coldest during the daytime. At nighttime, the temperatures can drop anywhere down into the negative 10. We've gotten as low as negative 15, at some points, but it can be that cold during the day here too. We get a lot of wind. The weather changes and fluctuates so differently here. We've had 80-degree Novembers here. I can remember back when I was younger, back in my teenage years, and it fluctuates a lot. But here lately, we've been having pretty mild winters, I would say. And the fall time, the rut activity, we get big full moons here. When it's big, they're usually harvest moons too a lot. We get a lot of them orange-colored ones. But, yeah, it definitely affects the deer activity. They seem to want to come out and play when the full moon activity is going.
Now, do you keep a hunting journal?
No, I do not.
Because some guys do, and, that's
right.
an interesting thing to talk about. Let's
right.
talk about the last book about whitetail hunting that you read.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't really read books on whitetail hunting. I read magazine articles, several of those.
Let's talk about the last one that gave you some pretty good insight that you hadn't thought about before.
I can't really think of one off the top of my head, Bruce.
All right. That's fine.
Apologize.
Sure. Do you watch shows at all? Do you watch hunting shows at all?
No, not really. Not typically. I don't watch much TV. I spend most of my time outside and on the farm, of course, doing lots of stuff. I morel mushroom hunt, and I garden, and I've got, of course, the cattle, and I train and shoe horses, and I dabble in a lot of things outside. So no, I do not. Occasionally, I catch an episode of Buck Commander or something.
You sound like you're a pretty busy guy.
I try to stay busy. I like to be active, and it keeps me healthy. It keeps me young.
Let's talk about, you just got a new 100-acre parcel close to your home, close to Melrose there, and there's some bucks on it. Between now and hunting season, what are the 5 things you're going to make sure you do to have that property ready for hunting season?
First thing I would do is go in and scout. I would want to know what the deer are doing, how they're doing it, where they're going, where they're eating, where they're bedding down. I'd put up trail cameras. I have several that I run. I manage some wildlife food plots and things on the ranch that I take care of, as a matter of fact. And we keep some food plots. We have, clover patches. We have wheat we planted last year. We change it, a little bit from year to year just to keep their things interesting. But I would go in and scout the area first. That's definitely number one. And put up trail cameras so that you can get some long-term scouting done. Then I would see about where I would want to hunt from. Once I figure out what the deer are doing, then I would want to figure out where I'm going to put my stands, where I'm going to put my blinds at, how am I going to approach and ambush the deer, I guess you would want to say, as they're coming and going from their places. And those are definitely the main 2 things I would go for. From there, I would move on to thinking about food plots and trying to figure out what's going to grow there the best. If there's shady areas, I'd want to cut shooting lanes from my hunting spots. I'd want to clean up the area, but it's a managing process. You start with the scouting and then move into bigger and better things from there.
When you're deciding where to set up your stands, are you doing that in July, August. What month are you looking hard at where you're going to put your stands?
I'm looking right now at where I want to put my stands for next year in my new spots that if I was sitting in a spot last year that I put up and I was not completely satisfied with that position, I've already got it in my head where I want to move that to for this coming season. And this is the time of year, the weather's the best here. So this is the time of year you want to get out and get those things done before the deer start moving real hard and heavy through the changes of the seasons and get closer to hunting season. You don't want to disturb that activity as you get closer.
How many acres are you running right now? Hunting acres?
Hunting acres we have it's 160, I believe. Not quite 200.
Now, is all that wooded? Let's talk about the terrain and, what's on that land right now.
Well, 100 acres of it is field. It's farm ground, and then the remaining acreage is timber and a little bit of hay meadow.
Any creek bottoms?
Not on this property, no. We have one that runs the fence line of the neighbors right next door, but it just goes right around us.
How do you use terrain to help you figure out where the deer are traveling?
Around here, we have a lot of dips. We call them draws. They're the washes, basically, between high spots in the ground. It's pretty flat around here. We don't have really what I would call any hills, but the water does have to run somewhere to get to the rivers, and those little valleys, the deer tend to stay low in those because where I live, we're blocked up in mile sections. There's 640 acres in a square mile, and we have exact square miles almost for the whole entire county. So you can drive all the way around every mile section of ground out here. So the deer stay in those low areas and move from section to section to get from feeding to bedding areas, depending on what property has where they bed and what property has where they feed at. But they stick to those low ditches, those water running areas.
Now, if I was standing in the bottom of one of those ditches, how much of my body would you see?
In most of them, depending on what end of it you was at, they start high and they'll run lower to get to the water, to wherever the bigger creek or bigger watershed is. But typically in most of them, you could stand there and not be seen from the county road. It would be over your head.
So I'm going to stop right there. Hopefully, listeners, you're taking notes, because even though if it looks tabletop flat out there, there's enough terrain, undulations, draws. What do you call them? Dips? Did you call them dips?
Yeah.
And dips out in Kansas and Oklahoma, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, Dakotas. I'm forgetting the other states, but just because it looks flat, it really isn't. And until you get and spend some time on Google Earth and then put boats on the ground, we understand that whitetails do like and frequent quite often these small differences in terrain. Would you agree with that, Zach?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that's what provides them with the cover in order to move from place to place without being seen from, like around here when we have it blocked up in square miles where you can drive all the way around it, Unfortunately, there's problems with poaching around here because of that too. The deer have learned to stay in those low spots so that some idiot doesn't shoot them from the county road.
Now, do you have any sunflower in your area, or what's the typical crop people are growing?
Around here, our main staple is wheat. We've started over the past few years with the higher prices in corn. They've started growing a lot more corn around here, but our staples are wheat and soybeans.
Thank you for that. Now, Zach, we're at the point in the show. I know you've shared a lot about NGO, but at this point, let's talk about the specific URLs. Let's talk about the best way to get a hold of you as a regional director, how to get a hold of the home office. So last few minutes here, Zach, take it away about NGO.
All right. I'd be glad to. NGO, if you're interested in joining NGO, you can contact me at overmeno@hotmail.com. Just send me a message. I check them pretty frequently, so I will tell you everything you need to know in order to join. You can contact Russ and the rest of us at NGO through newgenerationoutdoors@gmail.com. Of course, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Look up New Generation Outdoors. Look up NGO. You'll find us. It's at NGO_2014 for Twitter. It's at New Generation Outdoors on Instagram, and we are New Generation Outdoors on Facebook. And like I said, if you're interested, we're looking for people to help us get this off the ground running. We need members. We need representatives. We need people that are willing to step up and take some initiative and help us get these traditions passed on and get more kids involved in the outdoors than what there is. So we, like you said before, we don't want to lose these traditions, and we are in danger of that in these times. And the best way to get a hold of NGO, New Generation Outdoors, @gmail.com. You'll get a hold of our main office that way, and then we can go from there. We'll talk. We'll be more than happy to discuss anything with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our traditions are on the fire, and it's only because of organizations like this and similar ones throughout the whole country where people are saying, hey, when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, somebody took me hunting. Somebody took me in the outdoors. Somebody taught me how to catch a trout and shoot a BB gun, shoot a shotgun. And now that isn't happening in our country. So if you love the outdoors and you want to be part of it, this is one organization that can help you do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to another episode
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.